Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CivVic Labs information session. Very excited to be kicking this one off. I would like to first acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm live streaming on, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. This is and always will be First Nations, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander land, and I'd like to pay my respects to any elders past and present, and acknowledge any First Nations people who are beaming in today, wherever you're coming from. Thanks so much for everyone in the chat letting us know where you're coming from. Great to see people from Ballarat, in Melbourne Metro, from South Bank. Awesome to see how many people are coming through for this CivVic Labs information session. To kick it off, my name is Mark Newman. I'm the Startup Programs Manager here at LaunchVic. I will be facilitating and running the CivVic Labs program throughout this challenge. I'm also really happy to be joined by Ellouise Hickleton today, the lead for healthy and sustainable food systems at VicHealth. I will hand over to Ellouise in a little bit, but you've got me for the moment, so we'll kick off from here. Just a bit about today's information session. I'm going to give a quick overview of what CivVic Labs is generally to kick us off. I will then hand over to Ellouise to talk a bit more about the challenge statement and give that insight into VicHealth's involvement, why they're excited around this challenge statement. Ellouise will then hand back to me to give a bit more nitty-gritty details about the program, the selection process, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll finish up with a Q&A. And speaking of, I can already see, I think someone's already jumped in the Q&A and asked some questions. But please do use that Q&A function to ask any questions you have, which we will either address during the webinar with the LaunchVic team in the chat, or we will try to address it at the end of in that Q&A section. This is actually one of my first Zoom webinars, and I didn't realize for a little while that there's a difference between chat and Q&A. So chat is that single little speech bubble. Q&A has those two different ones. So just make sure you're in the right place, and our VicHealth team will help try and direct you as well. And then the final thing is that this session will be recorded and published on the CivVic Labs website. So if you do miss any sections, or you're not 100% sure, or you need to send this off to someone else you think might be interested, we will send this out, make sure everyone knows where that is at the end. Excellent. Alrighty, I'm going to give that quick overview, as I've already mentioned. So what is CivVic Labs? Well, CivVic Labs is a 6-week program that connects startups and the public sector to help solve real-world challenges identified by government. This challenge is in partnership with VicHealth, but we often change our challenge partners. We have done previous challenges with VicHealth, but our most recent challenge prior to this was actually with the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action, running a digital energy program. So we often change our industry vertical and our government partners for this program. And what this really does is it enables new and emerging startups with potential solutions to the challenges identified by government to connect with government, and it helps facilitate that agile co-design process between the public and the private sectors. In terms of some other details, I will talk more about this later, but in contrast to other programs where you may have to pay to participate, CivVic Labs is actually an opportunity where you as a participant are funded to participate in this program. Specifically, each of the 10 startups selected to participate in this challenge will actually receive $15,000 worth of equity-free funding to help refine that solution throughout the program. There is actually also a potential to be one of 2 startups that receives a further $35,000 of funding at the end of the program. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. Alrighty, so that's a very quick idea and overview of what CivVic Labs is. I'm now very happy to be passing over to Ellouise. So I'm going to give Ellouise a couple of seconds to turn her camera on and unmute. I'm going to stop sharing screen. There may be a couple of seconds here while we change the screens over, so do be patient, please. Okay, let me do that. All right. I'm also going to turn my camera off whilst Ellouise is speaking. So Ellouise, if you want to hit present on that one down at the bottom, and then we'll go into that presenter view for you. There we go. Excellent.
All right. Can you see me as well? Yep.
Yes, all good. I'm going to switch my camera off and go for your life, Ellouise. Thank you very much. Take us away.
Thanks, Mark. Nice to imagine all of you sitting behind your screens today and joining us. Really excited to be delivering this today. So before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are all working on Aboriginal lands in various locations today. In my case, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I'd like to pay my respects to Aboriginal ancestors, elders past, present and future, and any Aboriginal people present here today, and acknowledge that it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So who is VicHealth? For those of you that haven't heard of us before, we're also known as the Victorian Health Promotion Foundation. We've been around for about 36 years, and we were established as part of the Tobacco Act. We're a statutory body who are funded by government, but we sit alongside it rather than within it. Our focus is on health promotion and preventing chronic disease. We operate across Victoria, and we have a particular focus on those who experience additional barriers to living a healthy life. We advocate for change where it is needed, and we partner with a really wide variety of organisations to have the strongest impact on health and wellbeing across Victoria. So as Mark said, we have partnered with LaunchVic before. So last year we delivered our first CivVic Labs program with LaunchVic, with a cohort of 13 startups who worked on challenges focusing on access to healthy food and understanding digital marketing from harmful industries. We had a really great experience working both with LaunchVic and with these startups, and we've kept in contact with a number of the cohort as they build out their businesses. VicHealth have chosen to continue partnering with LaunchVic for a few reasons: to support us in finding new and creative solutions to our health promotion problems, to support us to work with new organisations outside of our usual networks, in particular private organisations and startups, and to support a new model of partnership with businesses who can learn alongside us when developing their solutions, and to develop business models to be self-sustaining and not rely on VicHealth funding in the long term. So for this year's program, we've worked extensively to refine this challenge statement. How might we use technology to help Victorians better access and enjoy community or outdoor spaces? So I'll unpack that a little bit further. So we know that being physically active, eating well, and being connected to others is really good for our health. We also know that neighbourhoods and built environments are the places where people live, connect, play, travel, create, and work. They have a huge impact on our health and wellbeing. Access to parks and open spaces, healthy and affordable food, sport and recreation opportunities, healthcare services, public transport, education, and employment all affect our ability to access and achieve good health. But your access to these environments and opportunities depends on a range of physical and social factors. So physical could include where you live, your ability to travel, having publicly available spaces, and whether these cater to your physical abilities. And social could be whether a space is welcoming and safe for everyone. For example, would a woman feel safe there alone? How about people of colour? And what about children? People who own and operate community and outdoor spaces are often unaware of the impact that these barriers can have on a lack of use of community spaces, or where spaces could be improved to ensure that they are accessible and safe for everyone. Or they may just not have the capacity or ability to be able to appropriately respond to this need. So we are really keen to harness the creative, adaptive, and technological power of startups who can support these organisations to improve access to community and outdoor environments for health and wellbeing. So what are we looking for through the program? Essentially, we're looking for solutions that improve physical spaces, but not so much the behaviours of the people interacting with the spaces, which we can clarify further a little bit later. We want to change the way businesses and organisations create, redesign and activate spaces to make sure that they're usable by everyone. Our focus is on supporting the space owners or managers to improve spaces, not on the individual community members to change the way that they use that space. So this is not a prescriptive list, but here are some examples of the types of solutions that we're looking for. We want your solution to support businesses and organisations to ensure spaces are accessible for everyone, including people with diverse accessibility needs. And by that, we are referring to people who may have specific needs or requirements in accessing spaces or facilities due to their gender, their ethnicity, their religion, their disability, their income, or their sexual orientation. We want to support organisations to consult appropriately with their diverse communities in the creation of new spaces or upgrading of existing spaces. enable organisations that manage community or outdoor spaces to make their spaces more easily available for community to use. We want to make public spaces safer, provide organisations with data and insights that enable them to improve the development and usage of spaces, improve the experience of using outdoor spaces and facilities, and any other digital solution that enables organisations to develop or manage rec facilities and parks better. This list isn't exhaustive, so if you've got an idea that you think aligns with the challenge statement and addresses the problem, we're really excited to hear about it in your EOI. So one of VicHealth's greatest assets are our wide networks of stakeholders across Victoria, Australia, and internationally, and we'll be drawing on these to support you throughout the challenge. We're already lining up local councils, property developers, sport and recreation organisations, placemaking organisations, and community members with diverse lived experience of poor access to environments, and many more. A selection of these stakeholders will join you during the sessions throughout the program to test your ideas with and provide insight into how they design or manage spaces or how they consult with community. This insight and these connections will be absolute gold in building out your ideas. There's also the potential of promotional support from VicHealth and LaunchVic, which highlight your innovative startup solutions. So throughout the program, we'll be sharing your ideas through our social media channels, which will provide your business with a broader audience and credibility through your relationship with both ours and LaunchVic's brand. And if you're one of the 2 winners at the end of the challenge, you'll receive a funding injection to continue building your idea, which Mark will talk more about soon, along with continued contact with VicHealth and LaunchVic. From our last challenge, we've continued working with a few startups whose ideas are really aligned with our work and can support our projects. So we're hoping that there's opportunity for this again. Thank you for your time. And yeah, we really look forward to reading your application. Thank you. I'll stop sharing now, Mark, and hand back to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ellouise. Really appreciate that extra context. And yes, likewise, I'm going to share my screen again. Excellent. So yeah, Ellouise has given a really great context around the challenge statement. I will continue to unpack that a little bit and yeah, look at some areas that may need a bit of further explanation. But I'm also going to talk about the process of getting into the program, as there is a bit of a process there as well. Thanks so much for everyone putting those Q&As. I can see those coming through. I will most likely address all of those at the end, unless someone from the LaunchVic team feels particularly inclined to answer those directly in the Q&A. So as Ellouise has already said, the challenge statement for this program, very exciting. How might we use technology to help Victorians better access and enjoy community or outdoor spaces? One thing I just wanted to go through was what is a community or outdoor space? So for the context of this challenge, a community or outdoor space can include, but is not limited to, parks, community centres, gardens, sports centres and venues, urban farms, or really any underutilized space that could be converted into a health-oriented environment. So it doesn't have to just be a local footy field. Do think there are quite a divergent range of options here. So in terms of what solutions we are looking for, again, Ellouise has touched on this slightly, but we are looking for solutions that help businesses and organizations improve the way they create and operate community or outdoor spaces. But really what this means is that we're looking to support those businesses or organizations that operate parks, community and recreational facilities, and these could be including but not limited to government and private organizations, housing associations, councils, property, infrastructure development, universities and schools. So yes, again, there's quite a wide range of options here in terms of the types of organizations we can support. So what to expect from the program? As Ellouise again has already said, there's going to be that great kind of bringing together of all of VicHealth's contacts. LaunchVic as the state government agency for startups will also bring together a whole host of startup experts. But there will be a lot of startup methodology covered as part of the program as well. And some of these sessions might cover stuff such as problem statement formulation, value proposition, customer insights, prototyping, and pitching practice. Those mentoring sessions with startup and industry vertical experts really are the high point a lot of the times in these challenges though. Getting that unique insight and that immediate feedback from these really high-class mentors really can make the difference between where you start at the beginning of the program and where you end up at the end. So as I said, I'm going to talk through the process for selection into the program, just because there is a few little steps. So let's assume everything goes all right and you do get into the program. This is the process you would go through. So you submit an expression of interest, you then submit an application form, you'll then be shortlisted for an interview and have to submit a 3-minute pitch video. You conduct a 15-minute interview over Zoom, and then you're selected for the program. Let me just break down these a little bit more. So the expression of interest form, this is what it looks like on our website. So you can go ahead and fill that out now if you haven't already. But just to make sure you understand, submitting an EOI is compulsory as part of the application. Only people who fill out the EOI will actually be invited to fill out a formal application. So if you're in any way inclined or interested around this challenge, please do make sure you fill out an EOI, because we would hate for you to lose out if you don't fill out that EOI before the due date, which is 1 p.m. Melbourne time on the 31st of July. If you do fill out the EOI and then when it gets to the application phase, you think this may not be quite right for me, that's totally fine. I just hate for you to lose out at an earlier stage. And we've really purposefully designed this form to be quick and easy. It's just your name, your email, your mobile number, and your 25 words or less around a startup idea. That is actually a non-compulsory field and won't actually be assessed in terms of your eligibility for the program. It's more of just an indication of what you're looking to do, and so that we can make sure you're looking in the right direction for this challenge. But yes, please make sure you fill out that EOI if you're in any way interested, and happy to answer any questions about that shortly. As I've said, for the application form, which is the next section, all respondents who complete an EOI will be invited to apply via the email provided in the EOI. And that application form is split into 2 sections. So the first section is a eligibility check. So there's 5 eligibility criteria that we look for as part of this challenge. First one is being Victorian based. So we have an official definition, which is the startup must be either a Victorian registered and headquartered company, or in the case that you don't have an ABN or a registered business, the founder must be domiciled in Victoria. We're LaunchVic, we're working with VicHealth. We have to be focused on Victoria, as that's the ecosystem that we're looking to build. As the Victorian startup agency, LaunchVic, we do want you to be a startup to participate in this program also. So all this information is in the program guidelines and up on our website. A short version of the definition is that a startup is a technology-based business that uses innovation to scale rapidly and capture market at a high velocity. There is a more extended definition in the guidelines if you want to take a look there. But yeah, you must be a startup to participate in the program. The stage, so we're looking at idea or early stage, sorry, I should say, startups for this program. As you saw from some of the topics, we really are at that introductory stage of a startup, and that's where we're building this program around. So idea stage, we've defined as working on an idea that has not yet been fully developed or launched in market. And early stage is defined as testing a prototype in market without significant customer base or revenue. So just for framing, that's the kind of stage of business we're looking at, so that we can best design a program that suits everyone participating. Speaking of participating, that's our 4th eligibility criteria. You must be able to commit to participating in the program, just so that we can ensure the program is going to run successfully. And the final one is adhering to the Victorian government policy on ESG prohibited activities. There is a full question around that, and that's all in the guidelines as well. But all of these eligibility questions will be either yes, no, or tick box kind of style questions. So this little section should be pretty quick as part of the formal application. In terms of the selection criteria, these will be more either short text or long form text questions, where we're trying to unpack your solution a bit more and assess that as part of the application. So there'll be 5 selection criteria with different weightings. The first one is action and alignment. This is a measure of how well the applicant's proposed solution responds to the challenge. So we just want to make sure that what you're doing is actually aligned to what the problem we're trying to solve. So that's what that will test for. Impact. So does the applicant actually have a clear understanding of the challenge and how the solution will address the challenge? And there is an element of it being realistic and feasible as well as part of this question and this criteria. So it doesn't have to be that you're going to come up with a realistic and feasible thing finalized by the end of the challenge. It's just that there is a road towards a realistic solution there. The third one is capability and capacity. So this is split into two sections. Capability is the founder capable of delivering this solution? This is really where you get to talk about your strengths and your skills and highlight why you're the right person to be building this solution. Capacity is really just, do you have that time commitment and capacity to actually participate and develop this startup? We totally understand everyone has work commitments, life commitments, everything there. But for example, if you're running 4 other startups, maybe you don't have the capacity to truly take this solution in the long term. So we just want to see that you're committed to the program there. The fourth criteria is LaunchVic's assessment of support. So there is a really key part of, we want to make sure that we're actually able to help you in this challenge. And there will be examples where there are startups who are just outside of the scope of this challenge, no fault of their own, just not quite right. And so there is a question around that and an assessment around that as well. The final one is the declaration of relationships as part of VicHealth's harmful industry declaration and policy. So this is a declaration of any current, planned or past 12-month relationships with food, sugary drink, alcohol or gambling industries, which is required by VicHealth. Just to clarify, this does not affect your eligibility. You're still eligible to apply for the program regardless of your declaration here, but they will be assessed as a potential risk as part of the assessment. So we do just need to get that clarified at that stage as well. Excellent. All right, I've talked a fair bit there. Hopefully that all makes sense. But again, that Q&A section is there if you do have any follow-ups. Let's say your application form all goes to plan and you absolutely smash it. We'll invite you to be interviewed. Prior to the interview, we do ask that you submit a short 3-minute video pitch. This is just designed to be a brief explainer of your startup idea and help frame the interview and minimize the time needed with introductions. Because as you'll see, we're only doing 15-minute interviews, so it's not a huge amount of time. So we try to get all the introduction and kind of concept stuff all done up front in that video pitch, so we can really dive in and try to understand you and your startup idea a bit better in that 15-minute interview. Let's say you're all successful and you get into the program. So selected startups are required to sign a contract agreement. There is a funding element to this. There is also an agreement in terms of conduct. So yes, there is a bit of a contract, but it's very simple. There will be some orientation and program kickoff activities in mid to late September. And as I've said earlier, $15,000 worth of equity-free funding to each participant who gets in. At the end of the program, there are 2 pitches, and I'll explain a little bit more about this. So the first pitch is a judged pitch where you'll be in a closed door environment with a judging panel. This pitch, alongside a few other judging criteria, will be what is judged to select the 2 startups to receive the additional $35,000. There will also then be, a couple of days later, a showcase pitch, which is a public event where we invite the whole cohort, the ecosystem, to come and celebrate the cohort's efforts, and you'll pitch again. The reason why we've structured it like this is because we want to have that public celebration and acknowledgement of everyone's awesome work, but we don't want to attach the pressure of pitching for $35,000 to that public event. We do really want that to just be a pure celebration and an acknowledgement of everyone's excellent work. So the judge pitch takes place about 2 days before the showcase pitch, so you're nice and warmed up, ready for that one. And then the actual announcement of the 2 startups who get the additional funding won't actually happen for a few weeks after that. So that's just the structure around the pitching. And talking of timelines, with those pitch days, here is a quick abridged version of the timeline. There is a full version available in the program guidelines. A couple of dates I'll just highlight. As I've said, 31st of July, 1 p.m. is when those EOIs close. There's then about 2 weeks to fill out that formal application. And then saying you get through, the program commences on the 3rd of October and will finish up on the 8th with those pitch days to finish shortly after. Alrighty, I've done a lot of talking there and I'm excited to dive into some of these Q&As. Before I jump into the audience asked questions, I'm actually going to ask a quick question of Ellouise. Ellouise, would you say that there's any types of solutions that are specifically out of scope for this challenge, or any that you feel maybe aren't 100% appropriate for this program? Let me just stop sharing screen so we can see you. There we go. Ellouise, go ahead.
There are, and this might answer a couple of the questions that are in the Q&A as well. So we're aiming to make environmental and systems level changes to support communities and their ability to access open spaces. So we're not looking to change individual community members' behaviour through this challenge through things like participation apps or platforms. So an example that I've used a few times about what we're not keen to see is another Pokemon Go. There's a place for those things, but this will target a small subset of the community and won't have a longer term impact in actually enabling those spaces to be more accessible for community members. So yeah, to answer Cheryl's question in the chat, which aligns with this as well, it may be to manage the space to provide better usage opportunities, so better activating the space that already exists. It might be supporting an organisation to create new spaces, so property developers who are wanting to create open community spaces or community facilities within the new property development. It might be providing them with some kind of tech platform that makes it easier for them to do that. Or a council might be redeveloping a public space, a playground, a rec facility, etc., where they want community feedback, and there might be an easier way to do that, or to include more of a cross-section of the community's feedback. So yeah, there's quite a range that are included, but we're really looking to support the people who run those spaces or own those spaces to make them more accessible, as opposed to helping the person access the space. Happy to answer more questions if that's still unclear.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks, Ellouise. Really appreciate you going into that depth there. I'm going to start going through the Q&A and trying to answer some of these questions. So, Yoni, I can see you've asked, is there anywhere to add to the application beyond the 25 words? For example, a video that we've done. So, in terms of the EOI, no, it's just that initial 25 words. But as I've said, that won't be what you're strictly assessed on as part of the application. So once you fill out that EOI, you will be invited to fill out that formal application, and there will be a much longer form version for you to actually give us those more details. Because yes, we understand 25 words isn't a whole amount of words to make sure that we understand what you do. It's just a little bit of a taste to know. So yes, there will be a much better opportunity to showcase your value and what you're working on. So hopefully that answers that question. The next question comes from Amit, which is, does the tech need to be generic for all outdoor spaces or a specific one like a beach? I would say this is very much in terms of the market, choosing your market. There's nothing to say it has to specifically, unless Ellouise, you want to jump in and correct me. There's nothing that says it has to be one specific space or another, or generic for everything. It would be more around the strength of your application to looking at, okay, how can I actually scale this, and looking at whether beaches is a viable market. Off the top of my head, I would say, yes, sure, there's plenty of beaches in Australia. There might be a market there, but that's just something you may want to consider as part of your application. Ellouise, did you have anything that you'd like to add there?
Yeah, I totally agree. I was also going to say about scale, to be considering scale for your solution. So yeah, we don't mind if you choose one environment or for all outdoor spaces or community spaces. So it can be indoor spaces if they're community sort of facilities. So yeah, up to you how much you target that. But yeah, I would be considering scale in your decision for that.
Thanks, Ellouise. That's great. I'll now go to Cheryl, who's asked, so the solution is to help the business that manages these spaces. I think this is the question you answered before, Ellouise, to provide better use opportunity in these spaces. Yes. Yes, Cheryl, your answer is correct there. We're looking to target the businesses, yes, to try and provide those better opportunities for individuals to use those space. Thank you for clarifying. That's great. And Lisa's asked, what is the reason for the EOI if all startups that submit one are then invited to submit an application? That's a great question, Elise. So the reason we do that is that we want to make it as easy as possible to gauge interest for the challenge and get a better understanding of who is actually interested and kind of understand what the interest is out there. And then we want to refine it down through a funnel using that application form. The EOI is purely just our way to try and get out and gauge interest within the ecosystem and try and get the word out there in a sort of frictionless way as possible, because we have had previous challenges in years gone by where the initial application form can be a bit of a hurdle, and we just want to make it nice and easy for that initial interest, and then we can communicate directly with you via the details provided in the EOI. So hopefully that answers that question. We've got an anonymous question here. Does it need to be working digital product or software as the outcome of the program? Working, I would say, is a contentious word. I think we would want to be looking at some kind of minimum viable product. That doesn't necessarily need to be a fully fledged product or software, because the time, let alone the money to develop that, may not be quite there. But we want to see a pathway towards having that as a fully fledged solution. So I would say, no, it doesn't need to be a fully working digital product by the end of the program, but there should be some element of, hey, this is where we're going to be by the end of the challenge. Ellouise, anything you'd like to add to that one?
No, I think you've covered it. Yeah, in terms of how far developed it is, it depends on your starting point. If your idea at early stage, so yeah, we're open to that as long as there's progress and we know what the next steps are, I think.
Great, thanks, Ellouise. Owen has asked, is there any requirement in the team composition roles, for example, designers or tech? No, there's no requirement for that. Obviously, that may factor as part of your application, showcasing the strengths that you have. It may also be that you want to highlight, hey, we're really strong in this one particular area. We're aware that to grow, we may need to bring this person on, but we want to develop the idea in this challenge so that we can see where we need to hire. So I would say, no, there's no requirement in who's in the roles. We're looking for a really diverse cohort. So there's no specific need to be a particular profile to get into the program. But yes, there is a potential to highlight who you may need in the future or what you may be looking to develop. Yeah. Okay, so we've got another question. Who would lead the 6-week activities in terms of all these? So that will be me in part. I will be one of your facilitators. We'll also be having another facilitator, Sangeeta, who, if you were at our launch event last week, she was the facilitator for that, the moderator for that panel. Sangeeta is an extensive startup expert. She runs Jumpstart Studio, which is her own startup consultation service. And she's been working in startups for quite a while, and she's helped me facilitate the last challenge. And she also facilitated the VicHealth challenge prior to that, the one that I wasn't even there for. Ellouise, any extra words on Sangeeta that you can provide?
She's brilliant. We were stoked when we heard that she was also facilitating. So yeah, you'll be in very good hands with Sangeeta.
Yeah. So yes, us two. We will also have the VicHealth team involved, obviously, to give that context. And then yes, bringing in additional outside guest speakers and mentors, because we're always very conscious that we don't know everything in the room. It's one of the reasons why we partner with VicHealth. They know health. We maybe know some of the startup stuff, but there is going to be things that are outside of our context as well. So we're always big fans of bringing the best people in the room to try and answer and teach in those areas. Okay, Lindsay Bick has asked, hello, Lindsay. I met you at the Map Velocity event last week, so good to see you here. Is the office space available outside of the program's contact days? I will say no as a first. This isn't something I don't have a 100% answer on, but the program is going to be running at a co-working space in Richmond. So I would say the event space that we have for the program specifically, no, is not going to be available for outside of those challenge days. There may be scope to look at some additional co-working days in the LaunchVic office, but that is very much TBC and I can't promise anything. But if there is strong interest from the cohort, that may be something we can look to facilitate. So I will say no for now, but happy to look at that as an option in the future for the cohort. Excellent. Questions keep coming. Fantastic, guys. Loving it. We've got another question here from Ladin. If we're registered in New South Wales but have an office and half of our staff members in Melbourne, do we qualify? Keeping in mind that I was living in Melbourne for a couple of years throughout COVID as a founder. This is very much a granular question around the definition of Victorian based. I would say from that amount of context there, no, because the business does have to be registered in Victoria and the founder has to be here. But that is probably something that needs a bit more of an extensive look at in terms of your unique situation. So probably the best bet is to email us, civic@launchvic.org. Oh God, I'm forgetting our email address on the air. It must be nerves, but we'll definitely send through a link for everyone to contact us after this. So yeah, that might be a bit more of a specific question. We've got a question here. Do public health or marketing campaigns meet the criteria? Ellouise, I might hand over to you for that one. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, my first thought is in isolation, no. So just having a marketing campaign wouldn't probably be enough of a support for space owners to be able to open up their spaces. Just promoting the benefits of it or speaking to community members wouldn't quite be enough. But if it was in conjunction with another platform that you were creating or support service or something, then yes, yeah, it could be part of the solution, but not the sole solution, I think.
Thank you, Ellouise. Yes, I think meeting that definition of a startup is the kind of key question there. So excellent. Thank you. All righty, we've got a question here. Just to be clear, who is the end user, the public or the managers of the spaces? Look, this could be a question, you could say both, I would say. If it's a, say, B2B to C solution, there may be a situation where individual users are benefiting from the platform, but we do want there to be an element, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Ellouise, there must be an element of the space manager or the space owner using the platform, because that's talking to that systems level change that Ellouise referenced before. Ellouise, anything else to add there?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Yeah, primarily my first thought when I looked at it was managers of the spaces. That's our key goal. But there may be solutions that, like you said, they also target consumers as well as the businesses as part of the solution. So that would be fine too.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Question here, when you say community spaces, does this include events and venues? I'll pass to Ellouise in a second. My first question is venues, yes, maybe not individual events, only more from the scale question perspective. It's probably a little bit difficult. But I think if you look at every event has got to have a venue, you could probably target the venue more rather than talking specific events. Anything else to add there, Ellouise?
Spot on. Yep, I'd agree with that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Chloe has asked, can you submit more than one proposal? That's a great question, Chloe. That's not something I'd specifically considered, and I may have to address that in a later FAQ. Immediately, I don't see any issue with it, but it would have to be a new individual application. You wouldn't be able to submit more than one singular idea, I would say, within a single application. But that's probably a question we need to follow up on. So, Chloe, I might have to find your details from this session. Ellouise, any other thoughts there?
I would say yes, probably.
Yeah, I would say yes. I don't have any specific reason to say no, but I may follow up with that one, Chloe, just to clarify if that's okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. We've got an anonymous question here. Can you provide more details on what constitutes a startup and your definition of young in the guidelines? We are an existing, well-established business, but novel technology-based idea. Oops, sorry, I've gone to type. Oh, I think Holly's actually already answering that question. Excellent. I'll just quickly say, the full definition in the guidelines. Young is in terms of how long the business has been around. We're not quite as prescriptive in this guidelines particularly, but the whole element of CivVic Labs is to try and create new startups or try and invigorate new startups. So we do look to try and encourage newer businesses and newer tech platforms. But if you have any more questions around that, that's probably one that you might want to email us about as well. Yoni again, thank you. Is there room for abstract ideas in that making it more accessible for community members, but targets the community for the use of the tech platform as opposed to the business or councils themselves? I believe we've kind of answered that question already in terms of who's targeted. But Yoni, if you have any further questions, feel free to come and ask us again. Geza has asked, what is the expected timeframe to be ready to implement your product as part of this challenge? As I said earlier, no specific timeframe in terms of you must have X amount of products done by Y amount of time. It's more that we want to see there's a feasibility element of, could you actually create this? Not that it would probably be related to the scope of the challenge, but let's say you wanted to do some huge space technology kind of platform or product, we might say, hey, that might not be feasible to actually implement, whether it's within this challenge or even within the immediate scope afterwards. So what we really want to see is a feasibility of actually being able to implement this and some kind of working version or an MVP. So yeah, that's a little bit of a tricky one to say specifically what we expect. But we do want to have that feasibility pathway there. Ellouise, anything else to add to that one?
Not really. Yeah, it so depends on what your starting point is, and yeah, how well built it is, or how much.
Yeah. Jezza, if you have any questions around that, feel free to email us and we can try and help answer that as well. We've got a question from Zoe here. Is there scope to develop an intervention that extends beyond community facility spaces into bars, nightclubs, events, festivals, for example? I would say on the latter part of that question, that's probably erring closer to the relationships with what was the framing? Sorry, harmful industries that we talked a little bit about. Ellouise, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that a focus on spaces where alcohol is a sort of large focus of those environments. I'd say that would probably be beyond scope. The definition of a space, we're trying not to be particularly strict about it, because we know how many different types of spaces and community members interact with different spaces. But yeah, I'd just be careful about that harmful industries policy. Have a read of that. It should be linked on the website.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And again, kind of coming back to that events question that we had earlier, it may be that you help say an outdoor space venue that has the capacity to host a festival or something, but hopefully that's not their only sole operation. And we're really, as we've said in this challenge, trying to encourage healthy outcomes for all Victorians, including outdoor activity and everything like that. So maybe just have a read of the guidelines and let us know if you have any questions about that. We've got another question. Is some kind of market traction pretty guaranteed due to the nature of the program? Asking to justify additional investment from our end. I would say we can't guarantee any kind of market traction. Obviously, we can, as part of the program, you're provided funding and we're going to help promote you as a startup. But no, I don't think anyone in this life can guarantee traction, unfortunately. Ellouise, anything to add there?
Not particularly.
I think you have to be willing to create that traction and confident that you're going to be able to create that traction, obviously based off, hey, maybe this additional $15,000 to participate is going to be able to help you do something. That's totally fine, but no, we can't guarantee anything in this life, unfortunately. Shah has asked, could we pivot the B2B approach along with B2C later on in different stages? I'm going to say yes in this regards. Ellouise, feel free to interject if you disagree. But I think there is an element of looking at different verticals or different markets for your solution. And if you're able to, as part of this solution, address the challenge and address the market that we're looking to address, I think that's fine. If you then later down the track need to add a B2C element, I don't think we're going to be there to tell you no. So yes, I would say in short, there's definitely possibilities to be flexible. And I think that also could cut the other way in terms of if you've currently got either a little B2C idea or B2C solution, and you're thinking, hey, maybe could this apply to a more B2B lens, then I think that would be fine as well as part of your application. Ellouise, anything else in there?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, in later stages to add B2C, I'd be looking more towards adding B2C as opposed to replacing your B2B approach with just B2C.
Right.
It will depend on your context.
Excellent. Awesome. Couple more questions here still. Can our company partner with other firms to achieve objectives? I think I'd need to know a bit more specifics around that question. I don't think I have a blanket statement for that one. Maybe you could, Vigenswaran. Apologies if I haven't pronounced that correctly, but if you can provide maybe a bit more context either in the chat or ask a follow-up question with that one. I'm not 100% sure how to address that specifically. John has asked, is information security being addressed by the assessment criteria, given it might hold some identifying details? What standards should this meet? John, again, I might need a clarifying. Is that asking if our information security is being assessed or your information security is being assessed? If it's the latter, no, we're not specifically looking at whether you can guarantee information security as part of this application process, but that's obviously going to be a question you need to be able to address later down the line. Yeah, I think hopefully that answers your question, Ellouise. I don't know if you have anything else to add into that one. No, I think we look to work with, hopefully, if information or data security becomes a big element of this challenge and the types of participants that get in, we probably look to engage a speaker who could speak on that or try and refer through a mentor. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. John, if you have any other follow-ups, feel free to jump in. We've got an anonymous question here. Has there been any thought given to the legal or insurance issues associated with the uses of space? Look, the reason why we want to engage a lot of those public sector people and LGAs and all those types of people that Ellouise referenced earlier is to ensure that we are doing this in the right and proper way. Ellouise, anything else to add into any kind of legal or insurance issues?
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I'd be definitely seeking advice from the stakeholders that we're bringing in throughout the challenge about what their limitations are for their own spaces or, yeah, what they need to abide by.
Yeah, excellent. And not that I can guarantee we'll have the exact same speakers, but in the last Digital Energy Challenge, we did have a legal firm come in and look at some kind of legal concerns and insurance issues maybe that each team would have. So that might be a factor of this program as well. Amit has asked, can we link up with an existing attempt by a local council that has tried something but lacked usage due to the effort required on the community side? Yeah, look, I think from that element, if I understand correctly, you're saying, could you help to try and improve a previous effort that a local council has had? In short, I would say yes, as long as it's a new idea. Or a new kind of implementation of that idea. I don't see an immediate issue with that. Ellouise, anything to add there?
Yeah, no, I would say yes. I'd be, looking at supporting the council. If it's been unsuccessful in the past, but there's something that you think you can provide to make it easier and scale it up for other councils, then yeah, I'd say go for it.
Excellent. Right. Andrew has asked to clarify the targeted open spaces can be both public and privately owned. Yes, can confirm they can be either public or privately owned. We will be looking to engage both private and public sector to talk about spaces. So yes, happy to look at either of those in your option, Andrea. I think I've got a follow-up from Vigneswaran here around the strength may lie in the software sector, but to come up with a solution that needs a hardware design for which we may need to contract additional people. Yeah, I think that would all just be factored as part of your application. I don't see you not having that specific knowledge being an issue as part of your application. I think addressing it would probably be a best practice. But yeah, I don't think there's any issues there as part of an application. But yeah, if you do have any specific follow-up questions, feel free to email us. And then final question that I can see here from Cheryl, is the solution Victoria specific only, or can it be implemented afterwards to other states? That's a fantastic question, Cheryl. We're definitely looking for, I'll let you interject if you have any thoughts here, Ellouise, but from a LaunchVic perspective, we would love to see it be able to scale beyond Victoria. That's a big part of what startups do is scale and into different markets. So yes, if you can, I guess if you see this as a testing ground, okay, let me see if I can build this to work in a smaller environment, and then great, I can scale it into other areas as well. Yes, I would say we would want it to be able to scale. Anything else to add there, Ellouise?
No, I'd agree. Definitely starting in Victoria with a Victorian-based startup, and then, yeah, if you can scale to other states internationally, brilliant.
Excellent. Awesome.
Zoe's question as well is still there, and I know Holly was typing in answers, but just to add, we're not sort of looking at a blanket rule on never working with any industries that serve alcohol. The harmful industries policy will support you to understand. It's more, like Mark said earlier, it's about a risk assessment. So yeah, it won't mean that there's no way that you could participate in the program if you focus on alcohol, but yeah, it would just be a consideration of ours and something that we're not looking to encourage. So yeah, but you raise a good point that it's
and I think it all comes down to the scope of this challenge specifically, whether it's in particular scope or not. So yes, happy to look at that. If you have further questions, happy to answer those as well.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think that is everything that we have there. As I've said, if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to email us. But I think my first point of call would be to fill out that EOI, and then we can contact you further from there. And we would love to see as many EOIs come through. But if you do have any further questions, please feel free to jump on the website and look at our FAQs. We will update the FAQs and put this video up on the website as soon as we can. But otherwise, thank you so much, Ellouise. I'll say thank you to you for co-presenting with me today. It's been excellent to get your insights and that VicHealth feedback and initiatives in there. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone else for jumping on today. Hopefully this helps clarify some questions, and I look forward to seeing all of your solutions in the EOI forms soon. Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone. I will play us out with some music. Otherwise, thank you, and we'll see you soon.